She gave up 12 years for faith. What she discovered will leave you heartwarmed and inspired. In the early dawn light, the sun kissed the cornfields, painting the sky in hues of gold and peach. Today was the day Sarah would rally her small Nebraska town for a cause greater than herself. As a single mother of two and a devoted member of the local church, her 12 years spent in faith softened the edges of this rough-and-tumble world. But the shadows of doubt loomed over her heart like storm clouds, threatening to overshadow her dreams of making a difference in the life of a local war veteran facing eviction. "Why should we help a man who can't help himself?" echoed the whispers from some neighbors, cutting like a shard of glass. But Sarah pressed on, steeling herself against the cynics. She could feel the weight of expectation, the watchful eyes of her community scrutinizing her every step. Her brother Jim, a practical man who toiled at the factory to provide for his own family, furrowed his brow as she explained her plans. "You're wasting your time, Sarah. You've got kids to think about," he had said, his voice tough but worry hanging heavy in his tone. The distance between them had grown over the years, fueled by differing values and stagnant conversation. Judgments hung thick as dew on a cold morning. As folks began arriving for the fundraiser, Sarah plastered on a bright smile, her heart racing, filled with hope and apprehension. Each familiar face greeted her with warmth, yet she sensed the divides lurking just below the surface. The whispers of support mingled with scoffs of disbelief. She could see the tension in the crowd, a taut string about to snap. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The lively chatter began to simmer down as Sarah took to the makeshift stage, her voice shaky but resolute. "This isn't just about helping a man," she declared, locking eyes with Jim in the rear. "It's about standing together as a community. Remember what we stand for." The urgency in her voice pulled at heartstrings, igniting flickers of hope amidst the naysayers, but just as quickly as that hope sparked, tension crackled through the air. People began choosing sides. A local businessman yelled out that money could better serve the town. It was a belligerent flashpoint, igniting emotions that had been simmering for years. Sarah's heart raced, fueled by the fight for the soul of her community. Then came the wave of revelation. Her phone buzzed, drawing her attention away from the heated exchanges. An anonymous donation popped up, a significant sum. The realization hit like a lightning bolt. It was Jim. The brother she thought never understood her faith had reached out in an act of love that shattered the glass walls between them. It weakened her defenses but strengthened her convictions. As the crowd watched the showdown unfold, Sarah and Jim found themselves drawn into a raw confrontation, emotions spilling over like a river unleashed after a dam break. "You never believed in what I did," she cried, pain etched on her features. "You only see it as a waste. Because this town is struggling," he returned, fire in his eyes. "You can't just live in a world of ideals." They stood brother and sister, with a town watching, fingers pointed and hearts aching, the weight of years spent in silence collapsing in on itself, pushing them toward a reckoning. In that moment of adversity, would they find the path to understanding, or would division claim their hearts? Their future, as well as that of their town, remained painfully uncertain, hanging in the balance. Like the fading breeze of a late summer afternoon. The crowd held its breath, tension radiating through the air like uncomfortable heat. Sarah and Jim stood at the center of the storm, feeling both fierce and fragile. What had started as a fight for one individual now felt like a battlefield of ideas, family ties unraveling under the harsh light of scrutiny. The murmur of the townsfolk echoed in her mind like a dull drum, relentless and unyielding. Tears pricked at the corners of Sarah's eyes. "Jim, please, it's not just about this man. It's about us. What do we believe?" She could see the anger in his face battling with the flickers of understanding. He was a man shaped by hard work, responsibility, and an unwavering commitment to his own family. Yet even within those creases of his brow, she caught sight of the boy who always had her back growing up. Believe? Jim erupted, fists clenched at his sides. What good are beliefs if they don't feed our kids? What do you want from me? To throw money into something that won't change anything? Isn't hope worth something in this town? Sarah's voice broke, raw and honest. Can we not even try? The silence hung heavy, a blend of anger, love, and fear woven into the very fabric of their faces. Around them, neighbors shifted uneasily, people darting glances at each other, uncertainty growing a bitter root in their hearts. From the back of the room, Mr. Thompson, an elderly war veteran himself, stepped forward, voice shaking yet determined. I've seen what happens when people stop believing in hope, he said, each syllable deliberate and strong. Fighting for what's right is never a waste, Sarah. Sometimes, it gives us a reason to hold on just a little longer. At those words, a wave of murmurs rolled through the audience. Faces turned, some hardened, some softening, torn between resignation and the budding call to action. Sarah seized the moment, looking around at her friends and neighbors. This isn't just about a single man or a donation. It's a chance for us to stand together. We can rebuild our community if we just take that first step. Her chest swelled with passion, desperation spilling into every word. A soft sob from the corner caught her ear, and when she turned, she saw Miriam, a mother of 3, clutching a tattered quilt. I lost my husband to the same injustices. I know this fight, what it can do, it can give us all a new beginning. Hope intertwined with conviction, palpable in the air. As she spoke, eyes began to glimmer with understanding. The crowd drew closer, united by shared stories and distant pain, each voice emboldened to join this chorus of humanity. Jim remained rooted, wrestling with emotions that surged like high tide. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, reflecting the chaos of the scene unfolding before him, yet it was also the rhythmic call of his sister's steadfast heart. Slowly, he lowered his hands, sensing the shift in the crowd, the whispers of doubt transforming into murmurs of curiosity mingling with support. I can't let my kids grow up in a place that doesn't care, he finally said, his voice low but clear, breaking the silence like a dawn after a long night. But just as the path seemed to clear, another voice rang out, seizing the moment. And what about our own families? We can't neglect our needs in the name of charity. This isn't fair. The anxiety and fury stoked in the crowd raced back like wind whipping through a field. Could they truly drop the walls they built, or would this become a fracture they couldn't mend? Sarah's heart sank as she realized that the battle was still far from over. There was not just one man to save, but a whole community struggling on the brink of division. The sirening call of doubt threatened to drown them all. Would she be able to bridge that gap? Could faith truly lead them out of darkness and into light? The stakes were rising, and with every heartbeat, Sarah felt the weight of her mission pressing in on her like an unbearable burden. As she stood before the crowd, the question of unity remained ringing in the air. Who are we going to be? She asked, voice trembling but passionate. When the story is told, will it be one of division, or will it be one of healing? In the charged atmosphere, there was no telling where the next turn would lead them. The future lay just beyond the horizon, veiled in anticipation and uncertainty. And perhaps, just perhaps, it held the key to not only one man's salvation but the soul of their entire town. The crowd felt like a living, breathing thing, shifting and pulsing with conflicting emotions. Sarah's heart raced, caught in the undertow of tension. Jim's face darkened again, but this time, it was more complex. There was realization mingling with fear, and she saw the effort it took to break free of his own doubts. Jim, listen, she said, taking a cautious step forward, drawing the attention of those around them. This is bigger than just charity or money. It's about what we stand for. Can't you see? We have a chance to change lives. A voice from the back erupted, and what if that chance comes at our expense? We're the ones who will pay for this. Bills don't care about change. The room buzzed with agreement, heads nodding, but Sarah pressed on. We can't just close ourselves off. Doesn't our community deserve more? Isn't it about the world we want our kids to grow up in? Silence fell once again, but this time it was different. The people were listening. Through the haze of doubt, images of possibility flickered within them. Shared meals, laughter echoing in the streets. What if hope wasn't so distant? But Jim rubbed the back of his neck, tension radiating off him. I just don't know how, he sighed, voice hoarse. I'm scared for my family. What if we put so much into this and it collapses? I'm scared too, Sarah admitted, her vulnerability cutting through the tension. But if we don't start believing in something greater, then we're already lost. A rippling breath enveloped the crowd, and they seemed to shift toward Sarah, drawn by a lovelorn desire to connect. What was so much of humanity but a yearning for something better? I remember when the old church burned down, said Mr. Thompson, his voice steady but strained. We came together, didn't we? We rebuilt it stronger than before. We can do it again. The crowd murmured warmth, prospective light breaking through the shroud of discontent. Eyes began to search one another, newfound hope glistening amidst old wounds. And I remember our bake sales, Miriam piped up, the quilt still clasped tightly in her arms. We started small and looked what we built. Family farms, jobs. We can't afford to turn our back on each other now. One voice grew louder, but what are we even fighting for? It was Stephen, a young man who had long since abandoned belief in anything but survival. For the chance to belong. Sarah shouted over him, urgency edging into her tone. For the chance to fight for our children, to teach them love instead of fear. Together, we can make mistakes and learn, but divided, we won't stand a chance. The atmosphere crackled as the crowd absorbed her words, a collective heartbeat swelling like a tide creeping up the shore. Could they really push through this barrier? Jim's eyes softened, and for an instant, he leaned closer to Sarah, the flickering shadow of doubt illuminating subtly by understanding, but before they could grasp onto that light, a chilling voice boomed from the back. You're really willing to risk everything for a dream that might never happen? That's foolish. A ripple of agitation spread through the group. Faces turned wary, eyes shifted. Had they reached the peak of their unity only to face the precipice of division again? Sarah's heart sank as fear clawed its way back. Was hope truly enough in the face of relentless practicality? Do you believe in something better? She asked into the silence, voice trembling yet fierce. What kind of story do we want to tell? We can prove that hope has a place here. The crowd was still, reflecting painfully. Each heartbeat felt like a small echoing of uncertainty as they weighed her words against their reality. There, in that flickering moment, Sarah saw their hesitation's first glimmers of fiery determination and then the past quickly snuffing it out. But her heart fought back, pressing against the darkness. And suddenly, Jim took her hand. Maybe there's something to fight for after all, he said, as the crowd leaned into that courage of vulnerability. What would their next step be? Was this the tide turning, or would the waves of doubt wash them back to shore? As they stood intertwined in the electric atmosphere of promise and fear, Sarah took a breath, fully aware the next chapter of their story was just beginning. What would they choose in their moment of truth? The room seemed to hold its breath as Sarah looked into Jim's eyes, their clasped hands a lifeline in the storm swirling around them. Her heart raced, fueled by hope and fear, both alive and battling within her. They had reached a critical point, a moment that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into the unknown. Together, Jim said, his voice quieter now, but firm. But how do we even start? Sarah felt a spark ignite in her chest. With our stories. These lives we live, sharing them, listening to one another, it's where all change begins. She noticed heads nodding slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. The murmurs of uncertainty still hovered, but there was a shift. Stories bring us closer, she continued, each word wrapping around the crowd like a warm, hopeful embrace. They show us our struggles, but also our victories. It brings light to the dark. Miriam stepped forward, her quilt draped across her arm like a banner. Each patch tells a stories of laughter and loss, hope and healing. Our community is just like this quilt. We're all pieces stitched together, making something beautiful. A smile broke across Jim's face. We could gather our stories, right? A community project? Yes. Sarah exclaimed, the idea blossoming in the air. An event where we share, connect, and rise together. We could start with a block party, food, activities, a space where everyone feels welcome. The crowd buzzed with cautious excitement. Jim squeezed her hand, and for the first time that night, it felt like fear and hope blended together, creating a new energy. But what if no one shows up? Questioned Stephen, arms crossed tightly. What if it's a waste of time? That might happen, Sarah replied, her gaze piercing yet gentle. But what if it changes everything? What if a few voices turn into many? You never know who needs to be heard until we start talking. A loud cheer broke out from the back of the room. I'm in. Someone shouted. I'll bring my famous chili. Laughter lingered in the air like sweet perfume. Slowly, others began to chime in, each new voice lacing the atmosphere with warmth. Ideas sparked and twinkled, like twinkling stars emerging under a vast dark sky. Jim, more relaxed now, said, maybe we can build something bigger, a community center focused on learning and sharing. Others joined in, suggestions flowing like a warm stream. Suddenly, rumblings transformed into plans, and plans into excitement. Projects began taking shape, one after another, like dominoes falling, each idea igniting the next. As the meeting carried on, Sarah watched the crowd transformed. This wasn't just a town hall, it was the evolution of hope. Each face glowed with possibility, the shadows of doubt overshadowed by a promise of connection. But as they drew nearer to the close of the meeting, a quiet unease flickered back into view. A single voice, small but clear, called out. And when they come for us? What then? That question hung, heavy and sharp, in the charged atmosphere. Their unity sparkled under optimism, but the fear sliced through it, cutting deeper than any knife. Sarah's heart sank. What if the world outside was still skeptical? What if true change met resistance that felt insurmountable? She looked around, soaking in the energy around her, the hope illuminated by their stories. We'll stand together stronger than apart. We can face whatever comes, but first, we must take this step. The crowd hesitated, breaths caught in their throats. Could they rise together against the doubt? As the meeting concluded, Sarah felt a shift deep inside her. Was this really the starting point they needed? The night air felt electric as they stepped outside, laughter mingling with apprehension. What they didn't know was that outside these familiar walls lay challenges they had never anticipated. Would their bond weather the storms ahead? As the flicker of hope caught flame, the first whispers of doubt crawled back. It was time to discover if they could truly stand united when faced with the unknown. But as they walked into the night, the question lingered: could their shared dreams build a shelter strong enough to withstand whatever threats were coming their way? The night air wrapped around them like a cool blanket, a stark contrast to the heat of the moment they had just shared. Sarah walked beside Jim, a whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. The laughter faded, but the weight of that final question lingered, pressing against her chest. What if their proposed changes were met with resistance? What if the dreams they had for their community crumbled under scrutiny? Are you okay? Jim's voice cut through her thoughts. He looked at her, concern etched on his face. Just thinking, she replied, forcing a smile. It's just a lot to take in. We're ready to change things, but it feels scary, you know. Jim nodded, his brows furrowing slightly. I get it. But remember what you said in there. We're stronger together. We just have to show them what we can do. As they reached the edge of the lot where the parking spaces were filled with familiar faces, Sarah noticed the children laughing, darting around like fireflies, their joy contagious. It reminded her of how important this moment was not just for them as adults, but for the kids, who were still clutching onto the hope that change was possible. Do you think we can really pull this off? The block party? The center? She ventured, her voice softer now. I believe in it, Jim said, gripping her hand tighter. Look at what we accomplished tonight. People want this. They want connection. But as they climbed into Jim's old pickup truck, Sarah's heart quivered. The skepticism she hoped to banish raised its voice again, echoing the concerns of the woman who had asked about the potential backlash. You saw the fear in their eyes, right? Yeah, but we can't let fear control us, Jim countered, igniting a spark of determination in her heart. Remember the quilt? We're all stitched together. Even if a few pieces fray, the whole doesn't fall apart. Once back home, Sarah plopped down onto the sofa, her energy suddenly expended. Jim joined her, pulling the throw blanket over them both. The warmth enveloped them, a reminder of the caring community they were trying to build. I can't shake off the feeling that something is waiting for us out there, she mused. We'll face it together, Jim said, his voice steady. He lifted her chin gently, his eyes full of reassurance. Whatever comes our way, we'll figure it out as we go. She needed that reassurance, but her mind was still plagued with doubt. What if our efforts only bring more problems? Sarah, Jim said, his tone firm yet gentle, growing pains are part of progress. Those who truly want change will stand with us. And those who don't, well, we'll find a way to bring them in. Sarah sighed deeply, resting her head against his shoulder. You make it sound so easy. But I still feel it in my bones, what's waiting for us is bigger than anything we imagined. After a moment of silence, Jim asked, what do you think it is? As she pondered his question, the distant sound of thunder rumbled, a reminder that every storm brought change. Maybe it's our past, she finally said, uncertainty creeping back in. The beliefs that bind us, and the fears that threaten to tear us apart. His silence weighed heavily in the air. Sarah lifted her head, matching his gaze and feeling a flicker of hope rise within her. They had taken the first step, and whatever storm awaited, they would navigate it as a team, but as they settled deeper into their thoughts, the echoes of the upcoming challenges loomed large. Did they have enough strength to keep going? The storm outside grew louder, rattling windows and making her heart race. With every flash of lightning that illuminated the room, another doubt crept in. Would their dreams withstand the pressures that lay ahead? Then came the knock at the door, a sound so sudden and jarring, it sent shivers down Sarah's spine. As Jim jumped up to answer, she wondered, who could it be? The answer awaited just beyond the door, and it might change everything they thought they knew about their community. Jim hesitated by the door, his hand lingering over the knob. The knock echoed again, followed by a soft murmur on the other side. It was as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for them to make sense of what lay ahead. Who is it? Sarah called, her voice a mix of curiosity and worry. Just a minute, Jim replied, his tone laced with uncertainty. He turned back to Sarah, a flicker of concern in his eyes. You sure you want to? Whoever it is, we can't just leave them out there, she insisted, pushing back the blanket and rising to join him. He nodded, and together they opened the door. The figure in the doorway surprised them. It was Miriam, a neighbor from down the block, her eyes brimming with both discomfort and determination. She was clutching a faded, tattered notebook tightly to her chest. Hey, Miriam, Jim greeted, easing back the door to let her in. Is now a good time? She asked, glancing warily over her shoulder as if she feared the storm swirling outside was just an omen of more trouble. Of course, Sarah said, motioning for her to sit. What is going on? Miriam hesitated, biting her lip before she spoke. I've been thinking about what you two talked about earlier. The block party, the community center, it's important. But I worry people might not be ready for the changes you're proposing. What do you mean? Jim leaned closer, his instincts kicking in. He could feel the weight of Miriam's words, heavy with unspoken emotions. Miriam opened her notebook and flipped through pages filled with scrawled notes and sketches. I've been gathering thoughts from the neighborhood. I think we need to listen to what everyone is saying, the fears, the hopes, even the doubts. It's messy out there, and I'm worried people might not feel heard. The room was silent for a moment as both Sarah and Jim processed what she was trying to convey. I didn't know you were feeling this way, Sarah finally admitted. I guess we all have fear, but our passion pushes us to act. What if we could turn that into something productive? Miriam shot her an unsure glance. That's the point, Sarah. It's not just about your passion. It's about making sure everyone feels included. We need them with us, not against us. Jim nodded, his mind whirling. So you think we should hold a gathering? A more open format to hear people out? Not just a block party but a real conversation. Yes, exactly. Miriam's eyes brightened. I think we need to create an environment where the community can voice their thoughts, their worries. It might not be easy, but it's part of moving forward together. As Sarah listened, hope crept back into her heart. Miriam's idea tapped into something vital, something she had overlooked in her haste to implement change. What do you think? Sarah asked Jim, her voice steady now. Can we shift gears and make space for that? He smiled, a mixture of relief and excitement emanating from him. Absolutely. Let us make it happen. We'll need to work hard, but I believe it can shift the energy around us. As the storm continued to rage outside, the flickers of lightning danced through the window, illuminating their faces. In that moment, change didn't feel so daunting. Instead, they were united by a shared vision, a promise to create a space for everyone, even those hesitant to embrace it. But even as they began to plot the next steps, Sarah felt another twist in her gut. Would this actually help bridge the gaps, or would it expose even deeper rifts? With renewed determination, they turned back to Miriam, ready to bring the community together in ways they hadn't imagined. Yet as the door closed firmly behind them, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something else was waiting just beyond their door, something big. What if the community wasn't the only one with unresolved issues? What if, in this newfound journey, they uncovered truths that tested their resolve in ways they never expected? The next morning broke with a hesitant sun, the clouds lingering but slowly parting, as if echoing the uncertainty that hung in the air. Jim stirred first, glancing over at Sarah, who was still tucked under the blanket, lost in dreams or maybe fears. The day ahead felt like a blank canvas, vibrant yet intimidating. They had a meeting to prepare for, a chance to connect with the community, and perhaps mend what had been neglected for too long. Hey, sleepyhead, he whispered, nudging her gently. The sweetness of the morning was still unspoiled, yet a heaviness seemed to cling to them both. Her eyes fluttered open, confusion melting into realization as she recalled the plans they had made. It's time to wake up, he said, a nod towards the window where the clouds were beginning to yield to rays of light. We have a big day ahead. She stretched, a soft smile breaking through her initial grogginess. Right. The gathering. I just hope people show up. Jim felt a twinge of anxiety. They will, he assured her. They care about the block, about each other. They just need the chance to speak. With their morning routines completed, they decided to keep it simple, a pitcher of lemonade and a few homemade cookies. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As they set up in the community center, which echoed with memories of gatherings gone by, Sarah felt a surge of nostalgia wash over her. She remembered the laughter, music, and the warmth of kindness shared among neighbors. When Miriam arrived, her spirit seemed brighter, the notebook now accompanied by a stack of flyers hastily printed out. I'm ready. I spoke with a few people, and they're excited to have their voices heard. I think we can really make a difference today. Jim retrieved the flyers, scanning over the notes Miriam had made, each word a testament to their community's concerns. "You did all this?" he asked, his admiration evident. "This is fantastic." "Just trying to stir the pot a little," she laughed, a twinkle of mischief in her eye. "The only way we can move forward is if we ignite some real conversation." Moments later, the first few neighbors trickled in, faces both familiar and new filling the chairs. Jim and Sarah exchanged a quick glance, feeling their resolve strengthen with each person that arrived. As they opened the floor, the atmosphere shifted. Initially hesitant voices began to fill the space, expressing fears about crime rates, the loss of green spaces, and even worries about rising rents. It all came out like old wounds being exposed, emotions bubbling under the surface in ways that would no longer remain buried. "Can I add something?" A woman seated in the back stood up, her voice shaky but filled with courage. "I've lived here for 20 years and just lost a friend to violence. We need to make our homes feel safe again." The room went silent, sadness hanging thick. Jim's heart sank. This wasn't just about community events, this was a deeper issue, a cry for safety and connection. "Thank you for sharing that," Jim replied, an ache forming in his chest. "It's crucial we hear these stories. We need change, yes, but we also need to come together as a family." The crowd began talking among themselves, finding echoes of their own struggles in one another's words. It was messy, emotional, and utterly real, but as the discussion deepened, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that beneath this wave of sharing, a darker truth loomed. "Is anyone willing to dig deeper?" she finally asked, her voice steady but tight. "Dig deeper how?" a young man questioned, skepticism evident in his tone. She took a deep breath. "I feel like there is something larger at play here. Something that might connect us all together, but we have to choose to confront it, to open up about our true experiences." The room fell quiet again, tension hanging like a tightrope. What if their gathered truths unearthed not just community issues, but personal revelations? Would they even be prepared to face them? It was a risk, but perhaps it was the only way forward. The prospect of hidden secrets left Sarah's heart racing. What layers would this community reveal, and would they emerge whole? As the energy in the room began to shift, a new sense of unity started to form. But among the hope, a low hum of anxiety whispered that change comes at a price in all their hearts. Now, as they edged closer to uncharted territory, what unexpected realities would they encounter? What shadows would rise, testing their newfound courage? The murmurs in the room held a mixture of unease and anticipation. Sarah scanned the faces, each person holding a story, a background she might not fully understand but could feel resonating between them. The air was thick with the weight of what they dared to uncover. "Okay," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "what if we share not just our concerns but also what makes us passionate about this place? What do we love about our community? What do we want to fight for?" Jim nodded in agreement. He could see eyes lighting at her suggestion. Perhaps this was a way to shift the energy. "Yes. Let us talk about what brings us joy here. What keeps us rooted." An older gentleman in glasses spoke first. "I've lived here for over 3 decades. I love the park down the street, where my kids grew up playing." His voice trembled slightly but grew stronger as he continued. "It's more than just grass and trees, it's the heart of our neighborhood. We need to fight for it." Encouraged by his words, others took their turns. A young woman shared about the after-school programs bringing kids together. A couple spoke fondly of block parties lighting up the summer nights. With each story, the room felt alive, each word weaving a fragile thread that began to create a tapestry of shared love and pride, but the undercurrent remained the raw pain beneath the laughter. It was a contradiction, a reminder that joy often rises from struggle. Sarah could see that people were beginning to feel it, too. Their voices, once uncertain, began to intertwine. As she listened, her heart swelled with both hope and fear. Were they truly ready to confront the shadows hidden alongside their fond memories? Returning to the matter at hand, she took a deep breath, steeling herself. What if we could combine our love for this community with a plan to address our fears? What if we work together to make changes that reflect both our joy and our concerns? There was a pause, a moment of consideration. Then, Miriam, always ready with enthusiasm, chimed in, we can create committees that focus on safety, arts, and community engagement. Let us turn our love into action. An eruption of applause broke out. It was a spark of excitement, igniting something tangible. Jim felt energized and stepped forward. Let us do this. Who else with us? Tentatively, hands began to rise. The energy in the room began shifting again, unfolding into something collaborative, something alive. It was monumental in its way, each person took a small step towards unity. Yet Sarah felt the anxious thread tugging at the back of her mind. This was only the beginning. Just then, a newcomer, a teenager with quiet intensity, stood up, shifting the energy again. Can I say something? His voice cracked, capturing the attention of the room. I hear you all talking about community and support. But, what if we can't change things? What if we're not enough? A shiver passed over Sarah as silence reclaimed the space. This wouldn't be a simple endeavor. She could feel the heaviness of his words as tension filled the air. What if he continued, voice trembling, what if we're just wasting our time? Jim stepped forward, determination in his eyes. That's not true. Every little action matters. It adds to the change we want to see. But we have to face those fears, we can't let them hold us back. Sarah nodded, resolute now. Exactly. It's okay to be scared. It means we care. And if we stand together, fear will just be one more thing we can tackle together. But even as she spoke, the gnawing doubt crept back in. What lay ahead? Would their dreams and desires be enough to create a real impact? As they prepared to dive deeper into their conversations, Sarah wondered what other walls remained, what else they might uncover within their midst. Would they break through, or would they find themselves consumed by the very shadows they sought to illuminate? Something big was about to shift in their hearts, and she couldn't help but wonder what that would look like. Would they seize the light or succumb to the darkness? The silence in the room was nearly deafening. Sarah's heart raced as she looked around. She sensed the mixture of fear and hope on every face, the uncertainty hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Maybe we can start small, she suggested, her voice steadying. We can set up a gathering at the park next week. Let us invite everyone. Let us focus on what we love, and how we can come together. Miriam nodded enthusiastically. A community picnic. We can share food, stories, and maybe even plan some fun activities for the kids. As ideas began to flow, Jim took a step back. He observed how quickly the energy in the room shifted. People were nodding, excitedly whispering to one another about contributions they could make. For the first time, Jim felt hope seep in, but it warred with the uncertainty still lingering. The teenager who had spoken earlier, Ethan, still stood near the back. He looked unconvinced. What if no one comes? What if it's just a bunch of us sitting around hoping for change and nothing happens? Sarah turned to him. But what if people do come? What if we create a space where they feel seen? You can help us bring in the younger crowd, show them this is about all of us. The invitation seemed to light a flicker in Ethan's eyes. He hesitated, then took a deep breath. I can help spread the word. I know people who care but feel lost. Maybe yes. Jim interjected, sensing a shift. That's it. We need voices like yours. It's about building bridges, not just between generations but between all our stories. The warmth in the room deepened as more voices joined in. A retired teacher offered to bring supplies. Someone else volunteered to handle cleanup. Even the old gentleman who had first spoken began reliving memories of those joyful days spent in the park, weaving magical tales that seemed to bind them together even more. As laughter filled the air, Sarah felt hope swelling inside her. Could it be that, in the midst of their fears and uncertainties, they were beginning to forge a new path? But just as excitement seemed to grip the room, an uncomfortable thought crept into Sarah's mind. Would they be able to sustain this momentum? What if doubts lurked in the shadows, ready to snuff out the light they were beginning to kindle? Miriam must have sensed it too. Whatever happens next week, let us promise to stick together after. No more waiting for someone else to fix things for us. We need to be our own champions. There was a nodding of heads, murmurs of agreement. But deep down, Sarah felt the flicker of doubt again. What if this wouldn't be enough? What if life got in the way? That doubt was abruptly interrupted when Ethan spoke up again. You know, maybe we need to talk about why it's so hard for us to step up. Stuff we've been through, things we've seen, it's like the missing piece. We need to face that. The room fell silent once more, eyes glancing around as if searching each other's souls. A growing heaviness re-entered the space. What remained unspoken loomed large. Sarah felt the vertigo of the moment. Would they have the courage to dive deeper, to open old wounds in the name of healing? That lingering question hung in the air, pulling at their hearts. They were standing at the edge of something tremendous, yet painfully unknown. In that charged atmosphere, one realization struck Sarah hard: the heart of their community was not merely about joy or struggles, it was about embracing both in the name of hope. As they continued to plan, a pulse of determination shot through Sarah. They had lit a match, would they find ways to keep it burning? But before she could solidify her thoughts, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room, a reminder in the form of a toppled chair, startling everyone. They looked as a shadow loomed at the door, and Sarah's breath caught. Who was stepping in now, and what would they bring with them? Would it snuff out the light they were trying to cultivate or spark something even greater? The crowd turned as the tall, broad figure crossed the threshold. It was Mr. Daniels, the owner of the only hardware store in town, a man whose quiet discomfort was known well but rarely discussed. His arrival radiated a mixture of tension and curiosity, especially when he stormed through a wall of apprehension. "What's all this?" he barked, eyes scanning the room. "I heard commotion, and I want in on this circus." The glances exchanged between neighbors showed surprise mixed with an unspoken worry. "Mr. Daniels." Sarah stepped forward, attempting to bridge the gap. "We're gathering the community to talk about things that matter to us, the changes we can make together." There was hesitance in her voice. Had they bitten off more than they could chew? "The town is divided," he replied, crossing his arms. "Words don't plant real seeds. You all are wasting your time." Gasps erupted from multiple voices. Tension surged again, and Sarah felt the weight of shattered hope crashing down. "Maybe we are," Jim interjected, a note of defiance in his tone. "But we're here, trying to change things. If you think it's a circus, we need folks like you involved." "That's just it." Mr. Daniels shot back, his voice raising in irritation. "You think camaraderie is enough to deal with the real problems? You don't understand what we're really up against." Silence followed, thick and heavy, like an anchor weighing them down. Feelings of defeat washed over them, but Sarah couldn't back down now. They were at a breaking point, and it was time to turn that defensiveness into something transformative. "Then what do we do?" she challenged, stepping closer to him. "What's your solution? Can't you see that we all want the same thing, a thriving community?" Mr. Daniels' brows furrowed, his gaze softening just a fraction. She had called him out, pinched a nerve he had long buried within himself. The vulnerability flickered across the faces of others in attendance, the realization that they were all carrying burdens. It was that shared weight that connected them. Maybe, he hesitated, almost vulnerable. But that's the problem, everyone's too busy pointing fingers. If you truly want to rebuild, it'll take a willingness to face that cut deep and bleed. The intensity of his words hung in the air, igniting sparks of recognition among the crowd. "Acknowledge the hurts, the fears," Jim added thoughtfully, casting a glance at the others. We can't fix anything if we ignore the tough bits, the roots that have grown deep. More voices chimed in, sharing stories that echoed Mr. Daniels's experience: fractured businesses, children in danger, fear of caring too much. The pain of silence transformed into a raw healing, a shared understanding. The entire room shifted gently, collective fears laid bare, unraveling walls erected over the years. Sarah felt watching eyes meet hers, each with twinkles of revelation, courage budding in the warmth of vulnerability. It wasn't hopeless, it was raw and real. As thoughts began swirling into new patterns, the familiar crackle of energy returned, a resurrection of hope igniting the air. Let us come together and confront those wounds, Sarah proposed, her heart pounding with urgency. We can't ignore this anymore. Not just during gatherings, but every day. Yes. A voice rang out from the crowd, emboldened. The applause rippled, a wave of support washing over those who had stood back in uncertainty. Jim took a step forward, reinforcing the motion. We'll create a system where we can voice our fears and concerns regularly, place for everyone to digest and share what weighs on their hearts. No more hiding. I'll help lean into that, Mr. Daniels finally admitted, a hint of newfound acceptance relaxed his shoulders. Let us wear our worries on our sleeves. And there it was, the pulse of change beginning to echo, a chorus of individual voices threading together into a powerful symphony. The tumult of doubt receded as wind carried their embers forth, offering warmth on a chilly night. As the crowd erupted into heartfelt conversations about how they could work together, Sarah looked around, tears brimming in her eyes. This wasn't just a moment, it was a profound beginning, a true chance to redefine their future. Weeks later, the block party followed through, and it was vibrant and full of laughter, ties being forged, stories shared while children raced around, free and full of joy. As the sun began its descent, Sarah stood beside Jim, a grin stretched across her face. We did it, she said softly, her heart swelling, every fear and doubt dissipating in the laughter of her community gathered together. Let us keep this going, Jim responded, clasping her shoulder tightly. Together, we can face any storm. And they would fight for their children's future, for hope, unity, and for a thriving community. A place where doubt would no longer hold them captive but serve as a stepping stone to building strength. And in that moment, stripped of hesitations, they vowed to embrace whatever lay ahead together. As the festival continued, the realization sank in, this was merely the beginning of a vibrant journey of community, love, and shared ambition. So, as the evening wrapped around them like a warm embrace, Sarah smiled, knowing they had discovered not just faith, but the undeniable strength of standing united. A heartwarming reminder that true change was not just a dream, it was now the living faith of their community. You need to subscribe now to follow these incredible journeys of transformation. This is the moment to show your support and leave a like now, so we can continue inspiring one another. Don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Comment below your reactions and feelings about the incredible ending. Your voice is essential in this community. Let's continue this journey together.